in your mind, you think as a fundamentalist, you think like, no, like I got God on my side. Like you're playing with this whole, like, let me make sure that this doesn't look, let me make sure I don't look like I'm believing in stupid stuff here. No, it's God's word, bro. Like, so yes, there was that sense. So let's continue, because he's actually going to point out some things where he is almost saying we're still fundamentalist, and we're going to actually address this.
Yeah.
Apologetics on creation, the creation story being literal, yada, yada. Well, recently, the fanatic deconverted from the faith. He wrote a whole book about it. Dr. Michael Brown challenged him to a debate. He doesn't want the smoke. That's neither here nor there. But there was this interesting conversation that
dude, listen.
Hold on, man. I'm sorry.
Can I rephrase what he said real quick?
Yes.
He doesn't want the psychoanalyzing emotional abuse that comes with the debate with Michael Brown. Put it that way.
And once again, to be fair to Dr. Michael Brown, it's not that he would be abusive or he would be any of that. I had a discussion with Dr. Michael Brown the week I put my deconversion video out. We spoke privately on a Zoom. He was gracious. It was almost exactly the same conversation he had with Dr. Joshua Bowen when he had Dr. Joshua Bowen on his show. I laid out my issues, and Dr. Brown didn't address any of them. He went to, his childlike faith, his experiences.
Yep.
Then Dr. Brown went online and he actually told people we need to allow Brady to let him, let Brady ask his questions. I don't believe it's anything different. I don't believe he's in some secret sin. I don't believe it's no other reason why he deconverted. It's the reasons he said. That's what I think. Then he said, let's just pray that Brady has an experience of God that will convince him more than these, theological issues have unconvinced him. And to me, I'm like, once someone begins to do that, what are we debating about? Because now you're not talking about the text anymore. You're talking about your experience. Right. So yeah, it's not that I don't want the smoke. I know where that conversation goes, because Dr. Michael Brown also, in an interview with Vocab Malone, talking about my book. I've said this several times, so sorry if I'm
no, please.
Michael Brown, it's almost like Vocab Malone brought up, like, Brady doesn't think this is literal, this is literal. And Dr. Brown didn't say, well, of course it's literal. He basically said, well, no, I think we could take it a different, like maybe the Bible's trying to do something else, which is the point that I'm making. It can't be literal.
Right.
So I think people who want to see that debate would be disappointed, because I feel like Dr. Michael Brown would actually say, no, you're right, Brady. It's not literal. It means something else, but that doesn't mean we can't still believe it. That's why I would have an issue with him. Doesn't mean something else.
I was thinking the way that the discussion went with him and Joshua Bowen, and it got really emotional.
Yeah.
Is that he's about those feelings so much that it almost feels kind of PTSD. I'll tell you, I'll give you an example. I was at a wedding where one of my best friends growing up, Jose Mahano, big into jiu-jitsu, man. We did it all, hand-to-hand combat. Like we're military kids. Me and his dad worked with my dad in the special forces. So Green Berets, you know what I'm saying? We're hardcore and all that. Well, he's getting married. So me and my brother, we go to the wedding. His dad is like a devout, born-again Christian. And I mean, he really believes, like I once did. And I think his son has mentioned MythVision. He's mentioned my deconversion, or at least been telling him Derek doesn't believe in God anymore and he's not a Christian anymore. Well, he came up to me, and rather than, like, I wouldn't even want him to challenge this, because I'd rather just not talk about it with people that I love, especially not at a wedding. He comes up, and this is the appeal that I get from like Michael Brown. And what I meant by kind of harassing you psychologically in a way is that he came up, whipped his wallet out, and he says, you see this right here? That's Isaiah 61. I can't remember the passage specifically. The passage where he talks about, I have good things in store for you. I want good for you. I want this and that. And he's like, Derek, you know what you need to do. You need to come back. Now do it. Okay. Now do it. And he's like already telling me what I know I need to do. There isn't a discussion. It's a simple emotional attack.
Yeah.
And if Michael Brown would listen to this, if you're listening, Dr. Brown, that tactic, it's like if I reversed it and go, now you have no way to prove that this resurrection actually happened. Cut it out. Stop believing it really did. Just call it an allegory. we know in our heart of hearts, you can't prove that kind of stuff. And you wouldn't say Romulus had an ascension, sir. You wouldn't say that Osiris actually was resurrected into the other realm. You wouldn't believe in those things. Listen, it's your culture, but stop. You know the truth. I mean, like, that's like cyclically, like trying to manipulate. And that's how I felt the conversation happened to Dr. Bowen.
Yeah, so I'm actually yeah, I'm looking forward to having Dr. Bowen on my channel very soon, because I feel like I would love for him to address how he looks back at that conversation now. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to. I mean, look, I used to listen. I read his book, James, on the brother of Jesus, James. I read his book back in the day. I didn't read too many of his books, but I read his book there, and he always had the same kind of feels Christianity that I deep down did have. It's hard for me to relate to someone who tries to say it's purely the historical research. It's purely the intellectual grounds for which I'm a Christian and I'm convinced based on that. I have a hard time knowing. It's not my experience. So I grant people have different kinds of experiences, but I'm wondering if they're not even aware that they're built in with some type of emotional connection to it. So, all right.
Yeah.
Continuing.
Yes.
He had with a podcast called MyVision Podcast. And this is kind of like,
that's your new name now.
MyVision Podcast.
MyVision Podcast.
Yeah. I thought it was funny. I mean, he must have forgotten the myth part, but you know, it's all right. It's all right.
Yeah.
Conversion deconstructionist corner for a bunch of people that have left the faith. And they're talking about this conversation. It's a 2.5 hour, 2 hour and 15-minute conversation. I listened to the whole thing thinking I was going to be challenged in my faith. Somehow I was going to see something or hear something like, oh, I never thought about this as a reason to not be a Christian. Heard nothing. Same old
iPhone or iPad is disabled.
We're paying you, Ruslan. We're paying you.
Not a big deal. Try 10 or
washed up type of thinking. If anything,
washed up type of thinking. So should I play that back like 10 seconds and let it ride? Or?
Yeah.
Because this is an important part, I think.
Somehow I was going to see something or hear something like, oh, I never thought about this as a reason to not be a Christian. Heard nothing. Same old washed up type of thinking. If anything, I walk away listening, consuming this sort of stuff, very invigorated and inspired by my faith. But there was this one.
Do you? Oh.
It gets juicier. I'm going to reserve my comments because it gets juicier.
Yeah, I don't want to. I mean, I can't read his brain, but dude, if you research cognitive dissonance, okay, if you hear arguments that are so conflicting and controversial to your particular position, oftentimes what'll happen is either you want to renegotiate what that is, or you double down deeper.
Yeah, you dig in deeper. Yep.
And it sounds like he literally is granting that definition by saying, oh, I came out even more invigorated, even more. I'm sure you did, buddy. I'm sure you did.
Yeah. For people watching, I hope you realize what Derek just said. It's a defense mechanism. It's a self-preservation. Like you digging your nails in deeper and grabbing on tighter. You report it as if it's a good thing, when it could really just be that reflex that says, you know, before I lose this, let me hold on tighter to it. Something to think about there, but I'm going to reserve my comments.
Okay. Awesome. I'm going to continue. My vision's going to continue.
Okay.
One little subtle thing that the host snuck in that I just found so disingenuous. And spoiler alert, like he deconverted because he had trouble with the Old Testament Genesis literal account of creation. In my opinion, like there's so many different views on the creation story from all kinds of different perspectives. And Dr. Michael Brown did a video on Vocab Malone's channel debunking straight from his book, offered to debate him. I don't think he wants to debate him.
Okay, so pause real quick. I know you have stuff to say. I specifically, what did he say before that? I almost want to go back a second here.
Creation story from...
Oh, he said
that
the host was being disingenuous. Then he goes to Genesis, right? So it was actually your particular story. I'm not going to say that Genesis stuff didn't play a part in leading me in the direction of deconversion, but it wasn't that. So I think that he's conflating yours and mine, but maybe he's clipping this from a live stream he did or something. I don't really know. So going back.
Oh, right. So maybe I was trying to figure out what happened there, because when I watched it originally, I don't remember it happening that way. So maybe. But yeah, he did go from the you being disingenuous, we're going to get into that, to deconverting because of Genesis and all that. And I'll just say now, he talks about me deconverting because of Genesis. In the same way he just said, there's so many different interpretations of Genesis. Another apologist or Old Testament scholar, I forget which one he was, he said, if you were to ask all the interpretations of Genesis, like, what's your name? They would say, we are legion, right? We are many, which is a weird, analogy, because in the New Testament, that's a demon possessed man with many demons says, we are legion. But in the same way, my reasons for deconverting are legion. So it's not just Genesis 3.
Someone's going to take that and run with it, but go ahead.
Yeah, it's not just Genesis 3. That's what started my path, but my reasons are legion. So I don't want him to mischaracterize my leaving the faith as because of that.